Music. 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 Music.
WFMP 88.7 Rosendale, the cutting edge of the Hudson Valley, brings you exclusively today's best music.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the CT Sportscast. I'm your host and fellow sports enthusiast, Colin Buchanan, and I am here with my co-host,
Tim Borland. And today we're going to talk some more baseball.
Yes, we are, as we are officially 2 weeks away from MLB being started. Oh, so excited.
There's a lot going on this spring training.
Yes, indeed. And actually, before we officially get started, there are two certain players I want to get into real quick.
Okay. I'm assuming they're Yankee players of some sort?
One of them is a Yankee player. The other one is a New York Met.
Oh, I know you're talking about that.
So,
Yeah.
obviously, over the past weekend, we discovered that two impactful players for our teams are injured right now.
Yes.
I think mine is a little bit more severe
Yeah.
as Garrett Cole, as Yankee ace Garrett Cole was being tested with some elbow problems. And as a result, the only thing that we can confirm right now is that doctors do recommend Tommy John surgery, which in this case would end his 2025 season.
And it would bleed over into the most of the offseason coming after that, too, with
It
Tommy
would.
John. Yeah. Because it's a little over a year tends to be for recovery, right?
A recovery, usually it's between 8 to 12 months.
Yeah, because it takes a year for you to, be able to use your arm again, and then you got to get back into the swing of just being able to throw more accurate to the same amount of accuracy you could before, But anyway, yeah, continue.
All right, so, but, and then as for you, of course, Francisco Alvarez.
Yes.
Instead of his thumb, it's now his hand that he fractured.
I don't know what's up with that. That hand's made of glass, but yeah.
It's his same hand from last year?
I believe it is. I might be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But he will be out 6 to 8 weeks approximately. It's not I don't think it's the worst thing in the world because I'd rather have it happen now than midway through or the early beginnings of this actual season, like what happened last year. But on top of that, you have Luis Torrens, who's actually he was a great backup. He's a great backup catcher, and he's actually, honestly, he has better defensive metrics than Alvarez did last season. So, honestly, if he can just hit 230, he'll be serviceable, but it becomes a problem when you need the backup catcher to Luis Torrens now.
Yeah.
So, I trust David Stearns. I'm sure he'll make a good decision. Sometimes some guys just pop up in spring training or in the AAA teams and stuff. Or you might just sign a veteran guy, might not be great. Or, bring back an old friend of Tomas Nido, who's actually been having a pretty great spring training, all things considered.
You know who's been having actually a great spring training that I just found out about?
Oh.
Klay Thompson's brother, Trace Thompson. I think he actually Trace Thompson. He leads all baseball in home runs with 6 or 7 home runs.
What in the world? I didn't even know he had a brother.
Are you serious?
No, honestly,
Really?
Well, first off, you're a Golden State fan, so I'm sure you would know a bit more about him as just
He
behind
came
the
up
stuff.
in the Dodgers organization.
But I had no idea he had a brother who also played in professional sports, let alone baseball of all things. That's interesting, huh? But I guess good for him. That might earn him a contract somewhere. So
He's with the Red Sox right now. So
the who's Red Sox or
the
White
Red Sox?
Oh, Red Sox. Okay.
So
If you said White Sox, he probably would get a contract.
oh yeah,
guaranteed.
anybody these days.
Which
can.
we will get into as we're going to talk about Central teams.
Oh yes,
for
yes.
today.
So, obviously, last Monday we had a great show that unfortunately did not get recorded with the American League West.
If you listened in, you had an exclusive experience.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of which, one final thing for the AL West. The I'm going to officially call the Athletics the Sacramento/Las Vegas Athletics because now they just revealed a Las Vegas patch on the jerseys.
Yeah.
With the addition of like the official renderings of their new stadium that's going to come in 2028.
We're just going to have white ceilings, which is going to be really fun for the
and
outfielders
a big
out
projector.
There. Yeah.
Also, Lawrence Butler finally got his contract extension. Fun fact, actually, I want you to try to guess where the Athletics rank this offseason when it came to spending money in the American League.
I think they're actually on the upper half of that metric, honestly, because I mean they had that contract Severino, of course, which was their biggest ever, but I know they made some other kind of moves and stuff, and what you just mentioned as well. So I think they should be right.
Second.
Wow. Yeah.
They obviously behind us, the Yankees. They spent $220 million this.
Of course, it's only as soon as they leave because they obviously wanted to wait until they got out of Oakland to do anything close to that.
I still don't understand to myself that I'm just still so excited for this, like for this Athletics team.
I mean, it's gonna be very interesting. I mean, we're gonna have two teams this season play in minor league stadiums.
Yeah,
which is just kind of crazy. Are the Rays playing in Montreal or where?
George Steinbrenner Field.
Oh, okay.
So today we are down to now our final division in baseball, that being the Central.
Yeah.
Obviously, I will do the National League.
I'll do the AL. Switch it up a little.
Yeah, we're gonna switch it up. Obviously, I'll actually have. You know what? I think I'll actually go first.
Okay. It's up to you, honestly.
So. Obviously,
your call.
To be truthful about the NL Central, I think this is one of the most confusing divisions in baseball.
The NL Central?
Yes, because you have no idea who the heck's gonna win this division.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a lot. Just I mean, every team has its own story to it.
Exactly.
Know?
That is literally, honestly, you just saved me about like 5 minutes of talk. Like that is literally the statement right there that I was looking for.
Very
like,
exciting. Yeah, there's a storyline to everything in a way.
I mean, am I going to make a prediction in which like it could be like the 2006 NL West where like the Padres won only 82 games? I mean, based on how the Cubs played in the last couple of years, yes. How the Reds kind of went in a great direction this offseason, but when they put it on the field, it's not what it shows for. It doesn't show as a result.
They're very flashy, but they don't really win that many. They haven't won a ton of games. Yeah.
And then the Pirates, who have very big hype and everything.
Skeens, of course.
You don't know what you're going to get out of them. And then the Cardinals are just stuck. Like, they're just stuck in just no man's land.
It's weird to think that just a couple of years ago, they were one of the top teams in the league.
They were. And then, of course, you had the Milwaukee Brewers, who somehow, some way, they lose players, and yet they win 90 games. So.
And then they either win in the wild card and then immediately lose in the division series, or they lose in the wild card after winning the division.
So I'm going to do with what I did for the last two divisions. Obviously, the first team I'm going to do, they're going to finish in last, and then so on and so forth. So my last place team is the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, they made no moves whatsoever. They lost Paul Goldschmidt, are probably going to lose Nolan Arenado during the season. Do I think he plays a full season with them? No, he doesn't. I mean, he's going into age 34 season. He had a down year from his 2022 campaign in which he finished third in MVP. Obviously, Goldschmidt won MVP and everything.
Right.
Also, a lot of guys kind of took a really big step back. Wheeler Contreras, who I actually thought was going to be a great transitional piece from Yadier Molina, he had a really bad year. Jordan Walker, I know he was hurt like for most of the season. He was also a disappointment. But there are some bright spots on this team. Mason Wynn came up from their system, played 150 games. He was excellent for them, so he's going to be their leadoff hitter. Lars Nootbaar, he has that power. Nate Burleson, he also contributes in the infield. Brendan Donovan shows that power and everything. The rotation, it's really only Sonny Gray and Eric Freddy. I still don't know why Eric Freddy signed with the Cardinals. I think
Yeah.
it was kind of just for the money reasons and everything.
Stuff like that. There's always some contracts like that.
Oh, 100%. And I think if there's a team that is going to basically sell whatever they have to kind of save money and everything, I think that top target is the St. Louis Cardinals.
Right.
Like, you can get reliable guys who can still contribute. You have Sonny Gray. You have Ryan Hensley, who I think would be fantastic for a team like the Royals or, heck, I hate to say it, the Phillies. Or,
Right.
Or, heck, I hate to say this, you guys too.
Okay.
So, I mean, and then you have Sonny Gray, who can be like a 3-4 option. Rumor has it that if Cole goes out for the season, there's a rumor that the Yankees would be interested in bringing him back. I wouldn't want that. I mean, Nolan Arenado is more than likely going to get traded before the deadline and everything. So, what do I really think is going to happen with the Cardinals? Best case scenario, honestly, at this point, there is no best case scenario for them. A successful season, honestly, is not to finish in last place.
They're in rebuilding mode. They're kind of in a whatever mode right now. Honestly,
They are.
It doesn't. It's just the worst spot you can be in as
It's
an organization where you just don't know where you want to go with this.
It's kind of like how those Pistons teams were from 2017 to 2020. Where,
just middling purgatory, basically.
Yeah, basically. So, the next team up I have is the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, out of the other three teams I'm going to say soon, this is probably the worst out of those three. I mean,
right.
Do I think the Pirates will start out on how they were last year, where they are in first place the first 2 months of the season? Absolutely, because the biggest X factor is that you have a full season of the man Paul Skeens.
Yeah, I mean, it's not first picks in the draft in the MLB. It doesn't always mean most of the time. It always seems to take a minute or a few years for these first round picks to. First pick in the draft, no less, to actually develop and become the players that they seem destined to be. Paul Skeens just did that immediately. He rose through all the minor leagues immediately and became an all-star next year. I mean, it's just this guy's built for this, clearly.
So crazy enough, BetMGM actually has him at the highest odds to win the Cy Young Award, which would be at a plus 200.
Just gotta hope you don't go into a sophomore slump or barring any injury, of
Well,
course.
he did add a new pitch, and that would be in the cutter. So that 95, 96 mile per hour cutter is just...
He's a beast.
I'm
He's
just
a beast.
praying to all the great hitters. Be careful with him, guys.
I'm just glad I'm not in the same division. Because at least means slightly less games, at least not as frequently with the Pirates.
Let me ask you a question. Would you trade Skeens for Soto straight up?
I don't know about that. I think collectively you could get a lot of guys to do a decent enough job for pitching. Pitching's kind of a weird thing like that, with I think as long as you get you can have your ace. You obviously always kind of want at least one ace on your pitching staff. But if you can just get a lot of guys who are just collectively decent enough, your offense can take you all the way to a championship.
All right, let me
that's how
rephrase
it
the
goes.
question. Would you trade Edwin Diaz for Skeens straight up?
Oh, in a heartbeat.
Okay.
In a heartbeat.
Okay.
Are you kidding me?
Yep.
In
All
a
right, so here are
heartbeat.
some of the additions that
No
the
offense.
Pirates made. No, I was just asking.
No, I mean to Edwin Diaz. Sorry, Diaz. I just need it.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
closer for starter. Any day.
So here are some of the key additions that the Pirates made in the offseason. Some of them are actually homecoming.
Yeah.
Adam Frazier's returning to the Pittsburgh Pirates on a one-year deal.
They re-signed.
They re-signed McCutchen.
Yep.
Caleb Ferguson they signed. He's the lefty from the Dodgers. Tim Meza, who was a Yankee and also was a Pirate at some point. Tommy Pham found his way to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that was kind of random. Although, I mean, he's kind of completed the rainbow of teams at this point.
Absolutely.
I mean, honestly, he's been even at this old age, late stage of his career, he's still a productive player for every team, and he's an emotional guy, and some teams want guys like that.
Just to think, 5 years ago, he was one of the top tier trade candidates, and in which he got traded to Tampa and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's kind of just moving from team to team. They also
Yeah.
got Justin Lawrence, the submariner from the Colorado Rockies.
Yep.
That was one of their other signings. And that's pretty much it, really.
Yeah, it's definitely. I feel like Skeens is gonna run into some frustrations with this ownership down the line of his career. You know.
So
That's just the way I see it, at least.
yeah, so there are a couple of questions going into the season for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Obviously, one of the biggest factors is their pitching staff, actually. What are you going to get from Jared Jones? What are you going to get from Paul Skeens in year 2 with them together? My biggest question is, what are you going to do with David Bendar?
Mm-hmm.
Or is he going to return back to that 2023 form where he was unstoppable and leading the NL in saves?
It's just hard for guys to come back like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I had high hopes from going into last season, and he really disappointed me.
Yeah.
So, and with Skeens and Jared Jones now having full seasons in their hands, obviously with the acquisition. Oh, they also signed Andrew Heaney, too. They also just signed recently.
Yeah.
Andrew Painter, who's one of their top prospects, he will be in the starting rotation going into the season. So they were ranked 20th in team ERA. Do I think that can be brought down with these key acquisitions that they got? Absolutely. I think they could finish in the top 10, top 15. And what I really like on what they did this offseason was that they didn't bring in guys that are young and that are going to develop and contribute in the future. They got guys that are going to contribute and also help out with the young guys. So then that way they can make an impact on both ends. And that is one thing that I really liked at the Pirates of this offseason. They got veteran relief pitchers. Obviously, they had that with Chapman last year and everything. And they also kind of got like a combo in going with that young and old type of movement and everything.
Right.
Best case scenario, in my opinion. By the way, I would probably give their offseason a solid B.
Yeah, that's completely fair, I'd say. They didn't make super big flashy moves, but they made some solid moves.
Oh, yeah,
here.
100%. Best case scenario, honestly, I mean, if the way that the last couple seasons have been for the Cubs, the Reds just continue spinning a wheel in mediocrity, Brewers actually finally losing everything, this team can win the division at 84 wins or something. Worst case scenario.
You think it'd be that low? I mean, that would take
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Best case scenario for them.
You don't know what to expect. That's the thing.
You would need a collective downfall from a lot of teams.
You would need a collective downfall from the other 4 teams if you want to make it to it. So,
right.
Yeah. The next team up I actually have, I only put this team here only because of what happened to them this offseason.
Okay.
And that is the Milwaukee Brewers, my friend.
You
lose the best closer in baseball.
Yep. And you trade him for nothing, too, really. I mean, you trade him for something.
You trade him for something.
But not what he is.
And then you lose probably a top 5 shortstop in baseball.
Yeah, a lot of pieces went. And, it's been the Brewers did lose their great radio announcer.
Bob Uecker. May he rest in peace.
Yes.
It's were awesome in the Major League movies and everything.
Yep. And, always a great sense of humor from him. But anyway, the Brewers are an interesting team. They made some moves here and there, but they've lost more than they've gained. But we'll get back to it soon.
We'll get back to it once after this break.
Little teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Today's episode, Bobcat in the Cave.
Oh, nuts! There's a bobcat in this cave! Save us, Sassy! You will, but first you'd like to stress the importance of cat adoption? Over 5 million cats go into animal shelters every year and they need to be adopted? Help us, Sassy! Why bother? We'll just get into more trouble tomorrow?
Sassy is brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org. Remember, adopt.
We're back.
And we're back. So, obviously, we were talking about the people that they lost and everything. Obviously, one of the big ones that in being They lost their 2 biggest stars and everything, but the show must go on. And Bob Uecker, may he rest in peace. You will always be remembered for your current contributions in baseball.
A great announcer.
Oh,
Great
100%.
announcer. Yep.
So here are some of the things that the Milwaukee Brewers did. They obviously acquired Nestor Cortez and some other people in part of that Devin Williams trade.
Right.
They also signed Jose Quintana.
Yeah.
Just recently.
Yeah. Which is interesting.
They're also going to be getting back Brandon Woodruff, who is coming off shoulder surgery for like the second time in like 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But here are also some of the guys that they got. They got Mark Canha. They signed Tyler Alexander, the left-handed pitcher who played for the Tigers and the Rays. They also signed Jorge Alfaro, Manuel Margot. So they brought in some What's up?
You said Mark Canha?
Yeah.
Oh, man. He's one of my favorite, like, random middle-of-the-road kind of players, honestly.
Yep. But here's the weird thing about this team, honestly. When you look at this lineup up and down, you have Bruce Terrain, Jackson Churio, who I think is going to be a big X factor going into this season on what he can do in year 2.
Right.
You're getting back Christian Yelich, William Contreras, and then you have Garrett Mitchell who's coming back from injury, Rhys Hoskins, Sal Frederik. Joey Ortiz is probably going to be one of the most underrated players going into this season. When you look at the stats that he put up during the season when he was playing third base, was absolutely phenomenal as he was part of that Corbin Burns deal and everything. And then third base is very, very thin, so they have Oliver Dunn playing that position. Their rotation's actually not terrible.
Yeah.
They still have Freddie Peralta. They have Nestor Cortez, Tobias Myers, who down the stretch was playing fantastic for them, even during the playoffs. You have Aaron Savali, and you have Aaron Ashbury. And then when Brandon Woodruff comes back, it'll probably be Aaron Ashby who will probably come off that rotation list. Now, the direction I think that the Brewers were kind of going into is kind of like what the Marlins and the A's do usually, because Milwaukee's is a small market. They kind of tend to give away their players. Well, obviously, Adames was a free agent, but with Devin Williams, he probably wanted money. They probably were going to give him too much, and they probably weren't going to be able to have enough money to sign some other players, so they let him go for trades and everything. Now, when it comes to how I think this season will go for the Brewers, it can go in 2 different ways. One, they can just win another 90 games and everything and lose in the wild card, or they can plummet in the standings and finish with 75 wins and trade Freddie Peralta somewhere.
I mean,
so like those are the 2 things that I see going into this season for the Milwaukee Brewers.
They have a lot of solid guys, and honestly, Jose Quintana, I mean, down the stretch for the Mets, especially in the playoffs, he was lights out. I mean, I don't know why. You know, historically, his stats aren't like amazing or anything, but he, I think he still has a little bit in him, and I think he'll be he was great for the Mets in many moments, mainly during the end of the season, but still. So, we'll see how that goes, of course, but, they always seem to have a solid roster of some sort, and, they'll either overperform or they'll underperform. It doesn't really seem like they'll either win 90 games or they'll lose closer to 90 games. It could really go either way, I feel like, with this team. There's not much of a guarantee either way.
I mean, well, one of the biggest things I think that will be a fact for them going into next season, I mean, they were ranked 5th in team ERA at 3.66. That's definitely going to change and plummet because of the losses that they had. And obviously, you don't know what you're going to get out of Brandon Woodruff and some other guys that they got during the offseason. They were ranked 6th in teams runs per game. That I actually think is probably going to stay the same because you're getting back players who are coming off of season injuries like Yelich and Garrett Mitchell and all of that. You also have a full season of Jackson Canario. So I think from an offensive standpoint, this team can get you to about 80-something wins. It's honestly just the pitching that's just really going to have to take a toll on getting the other half of the wins for the season. Their closer now is going to be Trevor McGill, who actually was their closer while Devin Williams was out, and he actually was pretty good for them. So that's also one of the factors when it comes to the loss of Devin Williams.
Right.
So the second team, and that I really think that this is going to be the year that they change their direction.
And finally, they don't just barely miss the wild card. They actually do make the wild card. Maybe.
The Cincinnati Reds.
Oh. Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think
Wow.
out of all the teams in the Central Division, I mean, obviously the Cubs on what they did, but when you look at what when I was looking at on how they constructed their team this offseason, I think they actually did a way better job than the Cubs. I mean, listen, they acquired Brady Singer for Jonathan India, who they finally got rid of.
Right.
I mean, he pitched 179 innings with a 3.71 ERA, and he had an 8.5 K per 9 innings.
Mm-hmm.
So you add him into that starting rotation, I think that's actually really good. They acquired Gavin Lux, Jose Trevino. They're saying that they're going to put Gavin Lux in left field to start the season, but I mean, with the cramp up infield, obviously Matt McLain's coming back. That is huge for the Cincinnati Reds.
Right.
Navarro Marte is probably going to be playing third base. Gavin Lux will also probably play third base. When I look at how this infield is, Spencer Steer led the team with RBIs at 98 last season. Matt McLain was a very, very productive, good hitter for them in 23 before he went down with the ankle injury. Ellie De La Cruz, I mean, what else is there to say about this man? This man is the Tyreek Hill of baseball. He can run.
Yeah, I guess that's one way
He
to put
can
him,
run
yeah.
the bases and like the Flash.
He's a phenom in terms of athleticness, yeah.
I actually think if this season goes right for the Cincinnati Reds, I really, really think Ellie De La Cruz can put in an MVP season.
Wow.
Now, I think that's one of the biggest, boldest predictions you're probably going to get from me this season.
That's a big one.
I mean,
He has a lot of competition.
If they win 90 games and say he hits 30, between 28 to 35 home runs and finishes, say, in the top 10 in RBIs and hits around 285, 290, and obviously he'll lead the league in steals, he will. I mean, how about this? If he has a season like Bobby Witt did last season, he will win NL MVP. I'll put it like that.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know. Even when you have that, you have Shohei pitching and batting. I mean, although he wouldn't be pitching initially, I guess, not to the full extent. But I don't know. I just think Shohei's he's such a talent. That it's a tough barrier to cross.
No, 100%. I mean, he does have a lot of players to climb up, but like I said, that would be only if the season goes right
yes,
for the Reds and
definitely.
Ellie De La Cruz.
Yeah, a lot. They need to be a winning team to even be. I think there's a pretty good chance he'll get MVP votes. He'll get votes, but I don't think he'll win. That would take a lot for things to happen. He'll have to be really, really good for that to happen.
Some of the other acquisitions that they acquired Taylor Rogers, the lefty from the San Francisco Giants.
Yep.
I actually had to look up his stats. I thought he did worse. I actually did good. He had 2.4 ERA and a 9.6 K per 9.
I know it doesn't matter as much these days, but what's his win-loss record?
I think it was like a 4-4 record, something like that.
Okay.
They signed Scott Barlow, who pitched 114 innings with a 4.26 ERA with Cleveland last season.
Right.
In 2022, he pitched a 2.18 ERA and 74 innings pitched with the Royals. If you can get him back to that form, especially with Taylor Rogers on what he did this past season. They also signed Josh Stronemount, who was with Minnesota in 2024. He had a 3.70 ERA before going down last season with an injury, and he had a 2.88 ERA with Kansas City in 2021. Now, those three, the reason why I just said those three guys is because obviously Alexis Diaz will be closing the games for them. Okay. If you can get that type of production with the numbers I just said, I think that bullpen can make it into the top 5. I mean, that is honestly that's a playoff. That's a playoff 6, 7, 8, 9 bullpen right there that you have if they're healthy.
Yeah,
So,
I mean it's a possibility for sure.
100%.
So yeah, they'll be an interesting team. I mean we've already said this with this division, but it's a whole basket case with just all these different. There's definitely going to be some surprises here. Just very unpredictable division here.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So, I mean, the starting rotation, honestly. Oh, I forgot about Jameer Colonero.
Oh, right,
I forgot about him.
Yeah.
He'll probably mainly be a DH, but you can also put him
Yeah.
at third or first or whatever. And then, obviously, you also have Christian Strand, and of course, like I said before, Novar Marte. Now, the rotation, I actually think when it comes to the most complete team in this division, I actually think it is the Reds.
They definitely have a lot of like exciting guys on that team.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you have to see just how it all comes together, because I feel like they'll either gel or they won't gel, which will the team chemistry it's very interesting to see. I don't know, because I mean De La Cruz is a great player, of course, but there's just we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yep. So, I mean, and then obviously the rotation: Hunter Green, Brady Singer, Nick Martinez, Nicoletto. So that's a very good, solid 1-4 rotation.
Yep.
So the final team that I will discuss, I'll actually kind of speed by it, but also kind of get quickly in depth with it. Chicago Cubs, I actually think they will win the division. They have the best overall roster.
Even with them losing one of their big top players.
That being
Cody Bellinger.
Oh, well, I mean, they replaced him with Kyle Tucker.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So, obviously, they acquired Kyle Tucker and Rice Presley from Houston. Both are on one-year deals, which is a big benefactor going into the season. They signed guys like John Birdie, Nicky Lopez, and Justin Turner for depth.
Yep.
But here is, honestly, their biggest question going into the season. What is the direction that the Cubs are going into the 2025 season? Are they contenders? Are they going to be a playoff contending team? Or are they just going to be on how they were in the last 2 years?
Well, I mean, if with them winning the division, they would actually make the playoffs, which would be a great step forward for them, because they've come short. They've been getting very short, just almost at a wild card spot, but they just miss it out every time.
Obviously, you are going to get I just hope this year Justin Steele gets a good bounce back year. Shota Ominaga, he's obviously starting the first game of the MLB season, which is next Wednesday.
Wow, jeez.
Yep.
I forget how much earlier that international game is compared to the rest of the season. So,
and then
he's a great player.
Tyone. Now, when it comes to the team ERA and their batting average, I think their batting average will increase with the addition of Kyle Tucker.
Right.
I also think their pitching is probably going to also stay where they are, which is 10th in the league.
Especially with Imanaga.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It's so interesting how he's not even a high-velocity guy, but he's just
so effective.
He seems like he just blows by guys with just like a 94 fastball.
Yep.
He's an interesting case.
So, I mean, I could definitely see like the standings that it was last season. Obviously, the worst record team was with 76 wins. That I could definitely see that happening again this year. But at this point, based on how the rosters were constructed and everything, I could probably see the Cardinals in last, Pirates or the Brewers in third and fourth, and then the Reds, and then the Cubs. So that is my overview for the National League Central. And sorry for it being a little this long.
Don't worry. I think that was perfectly adequate. I think you got all the right details in there.
Perfect.
But now it's my turn talking about the American League Central. So, let's just get right into it. We have the White Sox at the bottom. I don't think this is particularly shocking, right?
Why?
They lost a few games last year, and I don't think there's going to be that much improvement. Yeah, it's definitely not looking too great. You want to hope. I don't think they're going to lose. Let's see. I'm just going to look for the exact number here. They're not going to lose 121 games. They just can't. I don't think it's feasibly possible to lose that many games 2 years in a row. So I think they'll be improved, in some way. I think just in sheer just like randomness, they won't lose that many games. But with that said, they will still be probably one of the worst, if not the worst team in the league. So I think it's pretty safe to put them there. Yeah. Now,
how many wins realistically do you think they can actually get?
Well, let's see. They got with 120. They got like 40 wins last year, right? I think they could get I think they might still get over 100 losses. I think that's kind of realistic. So what that would be 60 wins.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think they could. If you aim for 60, I mean, obviously, maybe their goal should be not to lose 100 games. But that's about it at this point. Sorry to say for White Sox fans out there. Yeah, besides that, I would say, it's kind of weird because it's a very competitive division besides the White Sox. If you just took the White Sox out of the equation, I think you have an interesting have interesting teams here.
Oh, if you take out the White Sox, I actually think just from how each of those teams were last season,
yeah,
that is by far the best division in baseball.
Right, definitely, I agree. Now I don't know how much it's gonna. I don't know how much it'll really differentiate from last year's how the standings ended up, because I think I'm gonna go with the Twins in the next spot overall. I mean, I'm just looking at roster moves they made in a summary here.
They really didn't actually.
Yeah,
and
obviously it's not a big list. That's the thing.
Here's the biggest thing actually when it comes to the Twins. It's health.
Yeah.
Royce Lewis, who was unbelievable during his time when he was on the field. Carlos
Right.
Correa missed time.
And Carlos Correa, you just know he's going to deal with all those injuries. I mean, there's a reason why he failed those physicals when he almost signed the Mets and Giants.
Yep.
So, that's an obvious risk with Correa, and it showed in these past couple seasons. So, yeah.
Honestly,
health is their biggest issue, I think, and they just haven't made a ton of moves to really show any improvement besides that.
Nope.
So I'd say I pretty comfortably would put them in that second spot.
They can either be a 75-win team or an 88-win team.
Yeah, that 88 I would say is their ceiling probably.
100%. I agree.
Now we're really getting to the bread and butter of this division, though.
I just hope that this next team that you're gonna say, please don't let it be the team I think you're gonna put in.
I think it's gonna be the Tigers.
Okay, good. No. Okay.
Oh, okay.
You're good. You're good. You're good. All right.
Okay.
Proceed.
I'll go through the teams and I'll ask you afterwards what team you thought. But,
go ahead.
Yeah, I would say the Tigers. They had an amazing turnaround last season. It was very remarkable. They were down by a lot and they just kept winning and winning towards the end of the season, and they made it past the wild card round. I mean, Tigers fans haven't had a lot to cheer about or roar about.
That was a good one.
That's probably the worst joke.
They had all these signings and everything, and it just never worked out.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the other thing. They didn't even have they sold at the deadline, and actually somehow resulted in them doing pretty well to end the season. So it's a very big surprise, and it's a lot to look forward to potentially. I think they could be they could be an 85-win team.
Okay.
Definitely.
I agree.
I think somewhere 80 to 85. I think they can be somewhere in that mid-range. In terms of their offseason,
they obviously
go ahead.
Re-signed Mr. Jack Flaherty.
Yes, of course. That's definitely the big one, I would say. I'm just looking at an offseason thing off a website here.
I think it's actually funny for the fact that he did re-sign with them, even though they traded for him back in July. And what's even more funnier is that he was actually probably going to be the lost cause out of that rotation for the Dodgers.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
it was a smart idea for him to go back to Detroit because now he can actually be – because, I mean, with the season that he had last season and what Scooble put in, you can easily put this as a top 3 1-2 punch in the MLB.
Definitely.
Easily.
Definitely. And I think they have a good farm system and stuff. I think
They have Max Clark on the way.
Right. Yeah. I think there's a lot of promising things to look at, and you could argue that their end of season stuff that happened was them like overperforming and stuff. And I think there's a little bit of validity to that, to saying that in a way. Because that's something, a turnaround like that so late into the season doesn't happen very often. But yeah, I think they'll be like kind of around the same win mark as last season. I don't know if that will mean they'll make the playoffs per se, but we'll see what happens. I think they could overperform a little bit, maybe make it past the 85, or maybe meet that 85 win mark, possibly. So yeah, I would say that's certainly one way to go about that. Now for the next team, this is tough. I mean, you have two really, really good teams here, I think. I mean, you have just such a great roster. It was so tough for me. But I feel like with how things went last season and how it's looking to now, I think the Royals will end up in the second spot.
No,
Again.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, because, of course, it goes without saying, although I am saying it, Bobby Witt Jr., he is an outstanding shortstop, probably the best shortstop in the game, arguably right now.
And just to clarify, I was the person that predicted that Bobby Witt would have an MVP-type season, and I will stand by that to this day. I literally predicted what Bobby Witt would do about a week or two before the season started.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think they ended up with 86 wins because, I mean, they're off the biggest thing that happened with the Royals at the end of the season was their offense completely died out. That was what happened, really. Yeah, that's what caused their season to end on a positive but also kind of bittersweet note like that. So you really want to hope that the offense gets better, or at the very least doesn't fizzle out near the end of the season. I think, honestly, though, especially with Bobby Witt, I think he has a chance to be an even better player next season. I think I could see them reaching 90 wins, honestly. I really think so.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, the signings that they did during the offseason, they got Carlos Estevez, who was phenomenal for the Phillies down the stretch. They re-signed Seth Lugo to that contract extension. They also extended Michael Wacha. They also got... I'm trying to think on who else did they get during the offseason.
Right.
But, I mean, I think that this team, on how they constructed last season and how they exceeded expectations, I think it's a full go. At this point, you have your franchise in Bobby Witt.
Right.
And, I mean, with the season he put on last season and with the staff that's put behind him, you now have your official future roster moving forward.
Definitely have your franchise guy right there, too.
100%. And I honestly couldn't be more happy, more excited to see what Bobby Witt can do following his outstanding season.
Yeah, definitely. It's so the thing about your life as an organization becomes so much easier once you have a franchise guy.
Mm-hmm.
At least on paper. If your name's, unless you're the Angels, it makes your life easier.
Why was I was literally just about to say those words.
Like
you
word for
literally
word?
just took them out of my mouth.
Yeah. Well, I knew what you're gonna say. I have mind control powers. But for real, yeah. unless you're the Angels, for arguably one of the best hitters for one of the best batters ever, unfortunately. But my point is, usually at least, it makes your life so much better because you have your guy, and you know that you want to make your guy comfortable, but also be able to perform well. Get other good defensive guys beside him, get other offensive talents and pitchers that will work with him. And especially for shortstop, no less, because shortstops are so malleable like that. It really goes a long way. And with that, finally, I will go to the Cleveland Guardians, as they are called. They were. I think they're such a deep roster. I really, you got Big Christmas, in there. I think they're just a complete. They're one of the most well-rounded teams in the league, if not the most well-rounded. They just have so many guys at every part of their roster, I feel like, that can contribute in big ways. I think they can get to 95 wins, honestly. I think there'll be multiple teams with over 100 wins this season. So I think that will line up pretty well.
Wait. You just said the Guardians have a shot to win 100 games?
I said 95.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just saying, because last season there were no teams that made 100 wins. I think that will be different this season. I think there will be at least a couple teams of 100 wins on some divisions and stuff. I mean, some leagues, whatever. My point is that I think they're going to win 95 games. I think that's their ceiling. And they'll win the division that way, I think, because, they're deep. They're deep, man. And they can hit it home.
You got to realize something. You forgot one of the most important players to talk about. Carlos Santana, man.
Oh, yeah.
He's back.
Yeah. Yes, of course. Yes. Sorry.
I mean,
My bad.
One of Cleveland's greats.
Yes, of course.
But
on top of all that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have guys everywhere.
I mean, going off what you said about how the Guardians could win 95 games, do you think that Jose Ramirez can finally get over that disrespect of a hump and actually win an MVP?
It's going to be tough. I mean, the MVP race in the AL is going to be easier than the NL, of course, because you don't have a guy like Shohei. But you do have Aaron Judge.
I mean, in the last 5 years, he's at least finished in the top 8 in MVP in all those years.
Yeah.
I think he finished third twice.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. There's always guys that you got to be battling with. There's also some narratives that go into play, too, with MVP voting, of course. That's always the way it goes.
I will also say, right before we go into break, I think when it comes to it, I think they will have less wins than they had the previous season, only because they had a big loss in losing Josh Naylor during the offseason.
That's true.
You kind of downgraded, actually, from that first base spot. You have a lot of young guys that are going to be coming in this season. Kyle Manzardo, you're going to get for a full season now. You have Will Brennan's going to get a full season. Brian Mercurio, and then Gabby Arias, and Nickens Noel. You always have Travis the first overall pick that they had in last year's draft. Right. He's going to be coming up soon. So if the Guardians can hold their ground with the lead, with Jose Ramirez leading the charge, yes, absolutely they can win the division. But after this break, we will talk a little bit more about the NL Central, and we will talk about what we're going to discuss the next 2 weeks.
Cool beans.
Hands can do incredible things. They made every sound in this piece of music. But nothing compares to using them to help save a life. If an adult suddenly collapses, call 911, then push hard and fast in the center of their chest until help arrives. It's called hands-only CPR, and it's recommended by the American Heart Association. Visit handsonlycpr.org today. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
Okay, kids, the campfire's out. Let's hit the road.
Dad, the fire's not out. It's still smoking.
No, close enough.
Come on, Dad, do your homework. If it's too hot to touch, then it's too hot to leave.
I knew that.
You're never too young to get your Smokey on. If you see someone in danger of starting a wildfire, step in and make a difference.
Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokeybear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
We're back.
And we're back.
I know this isn't baseball related, but apparently Justin Fields just signed with the Jets, so that's something. Anyway, let's not get too sidetracked by this, I guess.
Yeah, so, but, I mean, like you said, if there was a team actually who I actually think disimproved this offseason, I am a Guardians fan. They are actually my second favorite team in baseball.
That you aren't, an official fan of, so to speak, in a way?
I've been following them, honestly,
right,
since they actually changed the name and everything and all of that.
Right. They're a fun team.
They are a fun team. I think, you know what this team kind of reminds me? You know what I feel like this team's going to be? I feel like this team's going to be like this year's Milwaukee Brewers. A good constructed team, but they've lost pieces, but they'll find a way to win games. So.
Yeah, I think they'll be okay. I don't know if they'll be contender, so to speak. Even with those higher wins I predicted possibly. I think they'll get into the playoffs, but I don't know how far they'll go. Really.
I'll say this. I think the Royals have a better chance to win the division than the Guardians do on missing the playoffs. I'll put that into retrospect. I'll put that into perspective, because then that tells me that those two things can possibly happen, but also those are two things that really I don't think could happen.
Right.
So, but I would say, by the way, great input on all those teams and everything. I thought on what you did with the White Sox was excellent. They did so much this offseason and everything. I think you gave them so much less wins and everything like that. So, but but yeah,
sorry.
But
I'm a little distracted
but
right
in a
now.
serious note, I think I would flip-flop the Royals and the Guardians, because I think this is the Royals.
Yeah, it will be close. It could be very close with the two teams. Definitely.
I actually think it could be kind of like how it was last season, for the NL wild card.
Right.
Those, I think the Royals, Guardians, and the Tigers could all finish with the same amount of wins, and it could come down to the final day.
Okay.
Something like that. I think that would be probably the best case when it comes to something like that.
Right. Definitely.
So, since we actually have a few minutes, I think we can talk a little bit quickly about the NBA.
Okay.
Obviously, the biggest news over the weekend and one of the biggest anticipated NBA games, the Boston Celtics versus the LA Lakers. It was Luka's first matchup since the finals, and LeBron James went down with a groin injury. Good news is it's only a week or two, but unfortunately, there's a certain other player who will be out for about 2 weeks. His name is Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
Both injuries, as crazy as what I was saying this to my friends the other day. I actually think with them both being injured at this time now,
it's a good test.
I wouldn't say it's a good test. I think it's actually good timing.
Yeah, I agree. This is the weird middling point in the season where you're kind of near the end of the season, but not quite.
Mm-hmm.
The Knicks have kind of been struggling a bit lately, offensively even. Towns has just been a little bit of a slump. In the first game without Brunson, which was against the Clippers, they actually, I thought they did a decent job. Mikal looked a little more like himself, but it's just there's not really a consistent flow with the team. And you can't, this is good for the team, honestly, in the sense that you can't rely on Brunson to save you, which they have been doing a lot, because almost all of their wins have been extremely close games or going into overtime. So, they have a lot on their plate right now, and I hope they figure it out before the playoffs start. Because,
I think they will.
Yeah,
they are still one of the three best teams in the Eastern Conference.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree. It's just they need to get back in the flow of things. Recover from some of those injuries, mainly Brunson, of course.
Mhm.
But hey, at least Tyler Kolek's gonna be playing a bit now, so maybe we'll see some playing from that rookie. And they tried playing Deuce McBride as a point guard, like a passing point guard, but that's really not his game. He's much more of a shooting guard.
Yeah, he's a
and
spot-up shooter.
Yeah, that I don't know why Tom Thibodeau was trying to work that type of lineup with him, because it's just not the way he plays when he's on the bench and stuff. He just doesn't have that same kind of ability.
Well, also don't forget, you guys did sign PJ Tucker.
Yeah,
Mr. Shoe Collector.
Okay, he does have, he has a lot of grit in the motion, so emotional guy. So, and, it's cool. It's nice to have guys like that who, even if they don't score a ton, he's actually pretty good defensively. I think he could still be pretty good defensively, even now. So,
But let me ask you the final question before we sign off.
Okay.
What team do you feel, with these two injuries now happening, are you more concerned for?
Oh, definitely the Knicks. I mean, the Lakers, obviously LeBron's a huge piece, of course. I'm not denying that. But you have Luka. Hopefully they get their center back, which, their center situation wasn't good, but they didn't have their new starting center for the Celtics game, and that was obviously an issue. So, but I would say Brunson, they've relied on Brunson so much to cater the offense that they're going to need to, it's a real test for them to see how they do without him.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. So that's going to do it for us here at the CT Sportscast. The next 2 weeks are going to be very exciting for us as we get into our official over-under record predictions for both the American League and National League, and also with some award predictions and some bowl predictions for both leagues. And then when that happens, we'll talk more about the NBA and also once when the MLB season starts, that'll be all.
Cool.
So thank you to all for that was listening. My name is Colin Buchanan.
I'm Tim.
And have a good rest of your day.